Let me do one thing. All right. Okay, so let's start with an opening prayer. Um, Dad, would you like to do our opening prayer? You are on mute. Do you want to do our opening prayer? You want me to do that? I can do that. I can do that. All right, so let us close our eyes and take a deep breath and exhale. And as we keep breathing, let us pay attention to this peaceful environment that we are surrounded. Let us give thanks to our mentors, to the spirits on high for the blessed opportunity that we have to be gathered in Jesus' name, so we can learn, we can grow, we can discuss, we can reflect on how we can be better beings, embracing our brothers and sisters as one. So thank you all the teachers, the spiritual teachers that are here with us. Please help us to assimilate and allow our thoughts to go into the direction that is necessary for our own awakening. May Jesus bless our evening, and we ask for permission to start tonight's study. And so be it. And so it is. Alright, so good evening everyone. Let me just finish this song. Although I love a background music, I don't want anyone to get distracted with anything. So I will share my screen as we today are going to discuss about a very, very interesting topic that most of times we kind of take it for granted because it is so part of everything that we usually speak and believe that we neglect the reflections that it should bring to us. So first, we are in the third class of our journey. Today we will talk about God, the first cause of all things, and a quick recap of what we saw previously to where we are now. It all started with Spiritism, and then the registration of all the Spiritist phenomena started in 1846 with the Fox sisters in New York City, where they started hearing spirits knocking on her cabins, and then they decided to start communicating with them and understand what that would mean. So from there, a lot of studies on top of Spiritism and that type of phenomena started happening. And then in 1853, it was very common in France, the game called turning tables, which a lot of people would get together and then they would vibrate and spirits would come and they would play games with them, asking questions about their future or asking questions about games and things that were non-important. But then in 1855, Professor Rivail, which is a math teacher, he's a very, with high credentials in France, educator. He was invited to go to one of those turning table and understand what was that about. And then he decided to go. And by going, he starts understanding that there is something really interesting in there. He sees that there is opportunity for us to start making relevant questions to those spirits, because he saw that that wasn't just a game and there wasn't something that someone was making up for that. But because he was a scientist, because he had that logical thinking, he created a methodology where he could understand what was coming from the spirits, if that was coming was a truthful source or that was not. And from that, he started creating a codification of the spiritism, which is exactly what we are studying here. And then after a couple of researches, and when I say he, it's not only him, but also all the team that was making part of that codification. He meets with the Spirit of Truth, which is the spirit also mentioned by Jesus when Jesus was on earth. But the Spirit of Truth come and say that this is a very important mission, the mission of codifying Spiritism and bring this third revelation, which is the revelation of allowing people to know more and more about the spirituality, about life. And this is how Professor Rivail understand that in a previous life, he was Allan Kardec, so he decides to use that name, so then no credentials would be given to him as a professor, but would be given to the spirituality, to the high spirituality who was bringing the truth. So that's how he turns Allan Kardec, which is the main author of all the books that we study in terms of understanding the Spiritism. And then last class, we also saw the main principle, so the foundation of the Spiritism. And then we saw that there are three main pillars, the pillars of philosophy, and then the philosophy brings to us all these questions around spirit and the afterlife and the reincarnation, all that aspect that invites us to think about us more than our body. So this is one very important pillar, and this also follows along everything that other important philosophers brought along years and years. The second pillar is the pillar of science, which understands the matter, which understands our body, and also how the connection between science and spirit, what does it mean? So there is another book explaining this understanding of the science on matter, which is called the Medium's Book. The Medium's Book is the book that will help us to understand how this communication with the spirit, with the high spirituality or any spirituality happens. So this is the book for us to understand more about matter. And then we have the third book, the third pillar, which is religion. And this pillar really brings to us how to navigate between these two worlds, the science and the philosophy, the matter and the spirit, which are the moral values that Spiritism invites us to reflect upon, so then we can better get the best out of this combination of matter, spirit, and moral. And with that, Allan Kardec writes at least 5 books. So we learned last week that the Spirit's book is the one with all the more than 1,000 questions about everything. The Medium's Book, the Gospel According to Spiritism. Then we have Heaven and Earth, and then we have the Genesis. And besides all of that, there is also the Spiritist magazine, which are Allan Kardec, during 12 years, the last 12 years of his life, he would monthly share his learnings and bring forums of conversation, so a lot of great discussions in there as well. And a big summary of all of those books and all of those forums are these 5 principles of Spiritism, which is a philosophical doctrine. However, it has religious consequences. And the reason why we say that there is religious consequences is exactly because of this part here. Because this part here that invites us to think how we can work on the morals for us to find this coexistence between science and philosophy. So there are 5 principles. One is the existence of God, which is what we will discuss later today. Woo! Sorry, my books fell. The second is the existence of spirit and Let me just do something here. The existence of spirit and the possibility to the existence of spirit, and their survival after death. So we know that the soul doesn't end after the body dies. The third point is the reincarnation, so the concept that we come back. The fourth is the multitude of inhabited world, and then the fifth is the communicability with the spirits. So today we will talk about the existence of God. And I really would like us to go deeper on this discussion, because as I mentioned to you, for some of us, it is so natural to believe in God. For some of us, it is simple to understand that God exists and that's fine. But for some of us, it's not. For some of us, we are still kind of not understanding, if God exists, then why this and that. If God exists, then whatever. My intention is that we bring those questions to our discussion. And the reason why is, first, because this is a moment for us to feel safe with our questions, to feel safe bringing our doubts. And really, this is a journey that I would like to take you through as much as possible. I don't have all the answers. I definitely don't have all the answers, but we do have a lot of books, and this is just a summary of everything that I read. But really, please feel free to disagree or to bring your point of view if you would like to do so. So I will start with the concept of God and influences even outside Spiritism, really, because I think that it is important. I don't think we should take for granted that God exists and accept this and that's all right. Let's understand the reasons why there are so many people that do not believe in God and the reasons why. What is the Spiritism point of view for God? What is the Providence? And now what? What does it mean for all of us? So really, I would like this to be provocative in a good sense. Well, the concept of God started really, really, really long ago, centuries ago, thousands of years ago. And the first registration about God is in Hindu. Hinduism is the oldest religion on earth, at least registered, as I mentioned to you. And then Hindus, they bring the god called Brahma. Brahma is the Lord of God. And he consists in this triumvirate, which is the three gods that they have. So they have the god that is responsible for the creation, upkeep, and destruction of the world. And then the other two, which are Vishnu and Shiva, they are the other two gods. So Vishnu is the preserver of the universe, and Shiva's role is to destroy in order to recreate. Now, we are talking about thousands of years ago, not someone, but a society bringing the concept of someone above all of us, someone with supernatural powers. And of course it is supernatural because it's out of ordinary to think about someone that has like other two kind of being, that has powers to create and to destroy. So this is the concept that was created long time ago. And one of the reasons why someone came up with this idea, society came up with this idea, is also because this is part of our instinct. This is part of our conscience. We know that for all of this to exist, there might be something above all of us. So that's how this idea about having a God starts happening. And then, just so you know, the word God comes from very old English, deriving from the Proto-Germanic, and this is related to our roots. So it's really at the beginning of everything. So God brings this concept of beginning. And then as years go by, thousands of religions and beliefs they described their supreme element in many different ways. So there were the triple goodnesses, as we saw, that came from the Greek mythology, relating God as stages of life. So mother, maiden, and crone, which would stand for youth, adulthood, and seniority. Then we expand that a little bit to psychopomps, which were the gods that would guide souls after life. So this is interesting because now we not only believe in a super powerful being, but now we are bringing the concept of having life after death. So see that the concepts are also expanding as we create, as we beings, human beings, create different concepts of God. Then we have the primordial gods, which is present in almost every mythology, and this is with regards to the unknowable power to create everything. So it goes back to the power of creation, but in this case it is lot of one single persons. So this is where we start the pantheism, and the pantheism are all gods. So it is when we start having different gods for different reasons. And then we have the celestial gods, which are the ones that are the cosmological bodies of the universe. So we have sun, the god of sun, and then we have the god of moon, the stars are other gods, and the planets are other gods, and so on. So what happens in here is that we start seeing gods that are more human-like emotions, but they are powerful from the cosmos, which is interesting because see that now we are creating gods that are very, very far from us. So they are in heaven, they are in the sky, they are somewhere else out of this realm. Then humankind starts believing on death gods, which are the gods that decides when we die. And then again, this is foundation of the pantheism, as we saw a lot of different gods. There is the god of death now that comes and then decides the fate of everyone. Then we have the culture heroes, which is part of almost every religion, and these are the gods that gave to humanity something that is important, usually against wishes of other gods. So here now we start kind of rebelling with some other gods. This is when we start creating gods for specific things. And then an example is Loki, that invited the net and gave humans the ability to fish. Then you have cyclical gods, which are the ones more related to seasons, and then those are the ones that helps us with changes and creating boundaries. Then we have the personification, or also called demons, which is kind of similar to the celestial gods, but this one is more with regards to emotions. So would be the god of fear, the god of lust, the god of hate, and so on. So we are now giving more power to our emotions through a god. Then we have the rustic or nature gods. They are most often elder deities who predate human civilization. So those are the ones that are more related to the animal instincts and desires. So this is when we start having more of the god coming from the wolves or the horses and that kind of concept. Then you have the craft gods, which are the ones that really starts creating civilization. So these are the gods that helped most of the achievements of man. And then you have the tutelary gods, which are the ones closer to the modern concepts. And the Romans would call them, they had two different forms of God. One would be the genius, which are the personal guardians. And then the second would be the ones that really helps us to find other gods. Why am I taking you through all these different types of gods if none of them are the Spiritist one? Because they shape our belief. They shape what our society understands as God. And this is one of the reasons why most of us are still not so comfortable with the concept of God. Because we as human beings started working with the concept of having a powerful being above all of us. Imagine yourself. Well, I don't know, but most of you might have experienced a house full of children. I don't have many of them right now in my life, but I know what does it mean to have a lot of children in a house. It is chaotic. Everybody wants to play, some wants to go here, others want to go there, some wants to eat one thing and some others want to eat other things. This is kind of an analogy of a society. This is what happens with society when there is no order. Humankind, noticing that, decided to create order based on the beliefs of fear. Fear is an intrinsic part of our society. We create order with fear of death. We create order with fear of losing. We create order with fear of not having, per se. So myth brings to us how important it is that we create this community based on one single culture, because then we can perceive matters that are usually hidden from most of them. So then all of a sudden, we start creating different segmentations of people that know God, people that can talk with God, people that can represent God, and so on and so forth. This is an example of a society, a very strong and powerful in the sense of being impactful for our nowadays, impactful society. We created slaves, then peasants, craftsmen, merchants, and so on and so forth. So we start using God as a power-making evolution. And this creates what we call mass effect. The mass effect is that effect when someone starts believing in something and keeps replicating to other people. All of a sudden, a lot of other people in many other different places are believing in the same thing. And this is how we were able to create society. This is how we were able to create order in the middle of the chaos. But then, of course, as time goes by, as we evolve in terms of our own needs, this belief also changes. And that's the reason why more and more is being revealed to all of us. That's why in the past, this was necessary. It was necessary to create some level of order. The way that we got to there might not have been the best. And life after life, we are understanding that. But still, we were using God as means, this concept of God as means for our own evolution. So all of this was really important. However, in the other hand, we know that many wars and many, atrocity, I don't know if I said this word correctly, but like many terrible things were created in name of God. Not necessarily created by God, but in the name of God, used by us human beings. So no doubt that some of us decide not to be friends with God. Which type of God would allow all those things to happen, right? This doesn't make sense. But then comes Jesus. And Jesus just helps us to get out of these segmentations, and Jesus unifies us. Jesus tells us, know the truth and the truth will set you free. Jesus doesn't say, I am your God. I am the Son of God. He says, we are all sons of God. And by the way, God is a merciful Father for all of us. So Jesus breaks these segmentations by showing us that we are all brothers and sisters, and we are all sons and daughters of the same God. And that changes everything, because that helps us to shift from I have to believe in my Pharaoh in this example, to start believing that there's something even above that Pharaoh. You start to believe that there is something really ruling and helping us to organize that chaos that we created for our own selves. And that's how we start freeing our mind. And that's one of the reasons why Jesus Christ is the foundation of everything that we study. Because Jesus is not bringing to himself this divinity. Completely the opposite, right? That's one of the reasons why he was persecuted. That's one of the reasons why he was killed. Because he was defying this understanding of divinity in the hands of some. Jesus is showing us that God is everywhere. So we keep believing in that. And then comes the Spiritism. The Spiritism helps us unveil a little bit more. So Spiritism is really this alliance between science and religion. So everything that was created and believed so far in terms of supernatural, in things that God is far away from us, God is up there, and if we do not do something, the God of vengeance is going to come for us. Jesus brings the opposite. And Spiritism helps us to use an important tool as science to go a little bit further and unveil a little bit more about what is God and why God is so important for all of us. So, Gospel according to Spiritism, we learn that Moses is the first revelation. Moses come to bring order. Moses come to help us to stop a little bit of that craziness that we were all living with each other. Moses brings order. Then Jesus comes and brings on top of order, love. If we do not know anything about Jesus, there is just one thing that Jesus asks for us, that he says that is the whole rule. Love God above all things and your neighbor as yourself. Love God above all things, again, brings us this comfort. We are not alone. And we will study moving forward, not today, but along the course, the reasons why sometimes we face things that doesn't seem fair. Sometimes we just face things that we're like, how could this be a loving father telling me that he loves me? Well, I will again use the example of a child, because we know that we are all children of God. But sometimes there was this day, looking on Instagram, and then this person did a collection of reasons why their children were crying. That was very funny. But one, the child was crying because she really wanted to sit on the bus, but the bus was in a cartoon that she was watching at the TV, and she couldn't understand why she couldn't just go and get into the bus. Then the other child was crying because she wanted to have more fingers in her hand for her to paint, and she didn't have enough fingers. She wanted to have more, so then she was crying. And then there was this other child that he was crying so much because he wanted to eat the same food that his dog was eating, but he could not. And friends, of course, those are just simple analogies that I am doing. But just to explain that if we do believe that there is someone above us that loves us unconditionally, he or she, God, will not be willing to see us suffer. And this is what we will see moving forward. But I truly wanted to bring that Jesus brings us this message of a loving God. So now we are not only understanding that, yes, there is a powerful being above us, but it's not a being that wants our, like, it's not about cults. It's not about killing an animal to give as a sacrifice. It's not about that. It's about love. This is what God asks for us. Love God above all things, because this helps us to feel humble about who we are. Understanding that we are not alone brings comfort, brings hope, brings guidance. And your neighbor as yourself, for us not to forget that we are all one. And then comes Spiritism with that 5 principles that I mentioned to you, unveiling a little bit more about what is God. So Moses comes and bring order, Jesus comes and bring love, and Spiritism comes and bring progress. So see that we are unveiling and we are understanding a little bit more over and over as we progress. And when we ask for the spirits on high, what is God? God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. When we read about God concept in the Spirit's book, we start grasping the infinity of God. There is no beginning, there is no end. God is this essence, this intelligence that is with us and above all of us. And then someone, I don't know if you guys are, the United States Spiritist Federation is also giving an introduction to a Spiritism course, which I think is a little deeper, but I'm watching all of them. And then in the last course that they were giving, someone made a very interesting question, which was, if God is the supreme intelligence, does it mean that intelligence is above love? I found that a very interesting question. And the reason why, and then as I kept thinking and as I kept assessing my own conscience to reflect on that, the intelligence, I think, is a way of us to use love. Love, as any other emotion, is created by God. And then when we think about the balance of the basic emotions, fear is also an important emotion created by God. The problem is that we still do not understand the harmony between all of that. Therefore, we end up going to one extreme. And then God is this loving guardrail helping us to understand when we have to have more courage, when we have to be more fearful so that we do not just put ourselves into danger, how we can have more anger, and then anger in a sense of doing something about. Do not accept some of the things that sometimes we are just put to accept. No. The right level, the right balance, and this is what God is, this intelligence, this harmony between everything on the universe. And this means so much, because if it's intelligence, there is so much that we can understand about that. In the science, it is said there is no effect without a cause. And then I was trying to look for who said that there is no effect without a cause. And then again, I kept thinking, because, well, it does make sense for me. You cannot have something that is just there by causality. But I'll tell you what, friends, there are so many philosophies that does believe that things are just causality, that doesn't have causality, that doesn't have a cause to all effect. If we are deciding to get into this philosophy that again brings us moral concepts, brings us religious consequences, we must understand what does that mean. And what we are saying is that There is no effect without a cause. Everything has a starting point. And what we are saying is that this starting point is the supreme intelligence, God. And again, for me, it does make sense, because this creation of everything is not just chaotic as we human beings were at the beginning of our creation thousands of years ago, which, by the way, was part of our evolution. But when we think about creation in the level of universe, everything is perfect. Perfect. It's harmonious. All the elements, they contribute for the continuous progress of each and every one. When a planet explodes, another thing creates. Imagine that we all of the sudden have sun to warm us. And it's this fireball that doesn't get so closer, but it gets close enough to keep us warm, to give us light wherever we are. We have the moon helping us to have gravity. All of a sudden we have air. That is exactly the thing that we human beings need for us to exist. So see, everything that is created has this perfect harmony, and is this perfect constant construction and destruction, so then we can keep progressing. All of a sudden, friends, destruction is not that bad, because it's helping us to create and to recreate. And the more that we go through that process, the more we understand. And this is the concept of, this is the universal concept. Let us go to our body. Our body is perfect. Of course that some of us have our health issues. Sometimes we are born with defects, and we will all understand that. We will all go through all of that. But in essence, our body is perfect. This is divine creation. We have cells that are allowing me to speak. And then we have the 4 elements. Who created fire? Who created the nature and the animals that have a specific, the shape that they need for their survival? So my friends, there is no way that all this intelligence is a result of by chance. There is this intelligent principle behind all of that. And then again, if we think about, if we internalize God exists, again, what does it mean? Why sometimes we get so fearful? Why sometimes we lose patience? Why sometimes we just doubt that we are alone, that we are loved? Let us reflect on that. What I think that is also interesting is that Allan Kardec keeps asking about where can we have the proof of God's existence, and why can't we understand a little bit more, and why? And then the answer is so interesting. Human beings lack the sense required to comprehend God. I found that so interesting, because I might be caught up with the word sense, but it didn't. The spirits didn't say intelligence, right? So it's not about being genius. How many amazing, brilliant minds didn't we have in the past? There was this quote, and I don't know if I trust that was really from Einstein, but someone said that we know so much, yet we understand so little. And this is the intelligence, right? Even if we know a lot, like right now, we were talking about the universe. We have a lot of scientists, and I'm really far from understanding, although I think it's amazing. We all know how the universe was created, and then there are all the theories of Big Bang and all that kind of stuff, but we can't replicate. We know exactly how our body works. That's how science functions, but we still cannot create another human being. We can create clones, but we cannot give life because it's lacking soul. And we still do not understand that whys because of our senses. How can we understand, see, hear God if we are still in this material world, still developing our material senses? God transcends the intelligence of even the most intelligent human being. This is what the spirits on high were saying. And that your language cannot express. Well, English is my second language, and I will never thank you enough for your patience on understanding me expressing myself. But even in my mother tongue, sometimes I just can't express what I'm feeling. Have you ever had this situation where you couldn't express what you were feeling? Try to explain love. Why do you love so much one person and why you don't love the other? It's all intangible. And the reason why it's intangible, because it transcends our senses. It transcends our understanding in these with these resources that we have right now. But yet, God's not saying you are not allowed to understand me. Completely the opposite. One of the things that the spirits keep telling us, and this I saw also on the Genesis, is because this doesn't have usage for all of us. Right now, the muscles that we are in need to develop are our moral muscles, are our spiritual muscles. Those are the senses that we need to expand, and knowing more about God won't help us to achieve that mission. And that's one of the reasons why do you want to know all of that? Focus on yourself. Focus on trying to understand who you are before trying to understand the most intelligent principle. Try to understand yourself. Try to understand your triggers. What makes you happy? What makes you anger? What triggers you to lose your patience? Try to understand yourself. That's what God is asking for us. So thinking about the attributes of divinity, there are some interesting ones, and I believe that most of us are familiar with those concepts, that God is eternal, and these are all reflections from Allan Kardec, based on, of course, the spirits that he was talking to. So God is eternal, and of course, if God had a beginning, it either would have had a spring from nothing, which we already don't believe, right? We were saying that every intelligent effect has an intelligent cause, or have been created by a being that existed before God. And this is how we gradually arrive to the idea of infinity and eternity, because, God cannot create another God, right? The second attribute is God is immutable. It doesn't change. If God were subject to change, the laws governing the universe would be unstable. And if there is one thing that we know about the universe, is the stability of the forces, is the stability of the matters. And that's why we are so concerned when we see like 1 degree on our climate changing, what this can cause. It is stable for thousands and thousands and millions of years. It's creation of God. God is immaterial. Of course, God's nature is completely different from everything that we call matter, us. Otherwise, God would not be unchangeable, of course. God would be subject to the transformations of matter, just like all of us. God is unique. If several gods existed, there would be neither unity in the plans of the universe, nor power in its organization. I have a thing about this unique. I understand that we have one single God, but I have so many theories that I would love to talk to anyone who wants to have a philosophical conversation about God. Just call me and I will share you my thoughts. But God is unique. God is all powerful. Because God is unique. Without this supreme power, there would be something more powerful than or powerful as God. So the Creator would not have created really everything, and those which God had not created would be the work of another God, which we already disproved. And then the other attributes of divinity is that God is supremely just and good. The great wisdom of divine law is clearly revealed in the smallest and the greatest things. The wisdom makes it impossible to doubt God's justice or goodness. And of course, if it's intelligent, if it's the most intelligent principle, how come it would not be fair? Providence, that we say, this is divine providence. This is the God's care for all creature. And then Allan Kardec goes further, trying to understand what is this providence. When we say that God is everywhere, what does that mean? So the concept is, let us imagine a fluid that is subtle enough to penetrate all objects, just like sound or light, but it's even more subtle. Being unintelligent, this fluid acts mechanically by material forces alone. Sound, for example, or light, for example, it always has to have something. So you have to have dark to see light. You have to have something for the sound to come and to vibrate. So it is mechanical. But if we imagine this fluid being endowed with intelligence, perception, sensitivity, it no longer acts blindly, but with discernment, will, and freedom. Because being intelligent, it sees, it understands, and it feels. That's why we understand that we are in God just as God is in us. And that's why we say whenever we feel like we need that connection with God, we can go anywhere. God is everywhere in nature, just as spirit is everywhere in body. Of course, is there any part of your body that doesn't have your spirit? No. The same with nature. They can't be separated. So the more that we awake our spiritual senses, the more we'll be able to understand and to detach our knowledge to only this material realm. So the more that we materialize our senses, the better we are able to expand our understanding. But of course that some of us might ask, then why do we have, if God is so perfect and so harmonious, why do we still have so many evil people doing so many evil things? We are not going to go over all of this today. We will go over this question along the course. But one thing that I wanted to bring for our reflection is that God created all spirits simple and unaware. What does that mean? That means that each one of us was created exactly the same way, with particular mission to enlighten ourselves and help us to gradually reach our perfection. And of course, that we reach that perfection by going through the experiences. Of course, we have to practice, we have to live, so then we can really absorb that understanding. That are the trials that we face. Those are the guardrails to help us to expand more one sense or other. And how do we know if we are going to the right direction? Jesus told us, do unto others what you wish them to do unto you. So when we think about someone else doing something bad, either for us or for someone else, of course we must do something. But the first thing is to be compassionate. If God is compassionate, why wouldn't we try to be compassionate? Let it in the hands of God. If we trust that there is a God, there is intelligent, there is loving, there is caring for all of us, let it be. Try not to do justice with your own hands, because then we would just go back to even before Moses, an eye for an eye, teeth for teeth. That's why what we should be doing is, what is the best version of ourselves? If we are in this ladder of progress, what is the best that we can do? And this is exactly how I would like to finish today, with a question that Allan Kardec does to the spirits. Is it enough to simply not do what is evil in order to please God and then ensure our future happiness? The answer is no. We must do good to the best of our abilities. Each of you will have to answer for all the evil that has resulted from the good that you have failed to do. So again, if we are talking about a God that is trying to support us on our journey of progress, if we know that this God is not that God anymore that is requiring it's not requiring suffering, it's not requiring that we do sacrifices, what do we have to do then? We have to do the good at the best of our abilities. So my friends, that's what I wanted to share with you today with regards to God. I wanted to share and to provoke this reflection on what does that mean. So bring it to your nightly review. Try to think, why is it important, and why is this foundation for the Spiritism? What does that mean to you? How it can help you to be comforted, to comfort others, to be more hopeful, and hopefully also to support you find your inner peace. Any questions, any comments, disagreements, or agreements?
Well, I think this is you made a good point about getting to know more about God. And because there are a lot of people who get angry with God if somebody dies and they weren't ready for them to die. And because they prayed and because they asked the pastor to pray or the church to pray and the person still died, they are angry. They don't get it. And then, or even if somebody is praying for even a job, something simple, and they don't get the job, they again can be very, very angry. Or if they lost their job,
Yep.
and they prayed for forgiveness or that they wouldn't lose it, again, you could get very angry with God. And the thing is, it's a very, very fine line there, because people give a lot to God. This is God's will. This is God's world. God is in control of everything. This is all very, very true. But what they fail to realize is free will. If you know the right way is to the right, and you choose to go left because your buddies and friends are over there, that was a choice you chose.
Yeah.
But they take that away, their free will, and they say it was God's will, and they turn it around to suit the situation that they find themselves in. And I know because when I was younger, I was angry about the parents I had. And I didn't feel that my parents loved me enough in the way in which I saw love being shared in my the other kids' families. You know, when I see their mom and dad, it really bothered me how I saw how their families interacted. They cared if they had new shoes and clothes. You know, it was materialistic, but I'm a child, so I'm thinking materialistic. And so, but anyway, all of these things were like strikes. You know, what's going on here? You know, you don't really know. And so the truth of the matter is, for many, many years, you don't know. And you have to search for your answer because he's not going to give it to you, not just give it to you because you won't understand it. And if it wasn't for Spiritism, I would not have understood even why my son has mental illness. But anyway, not to cut that short. But anyway, I want to go back to understanding that how we use our free will. And we always think that the free will just started this lifetime because I'm living right now. You know, we have, and we don't relate it to like something you mentioned earlier about this affinity that you might have for somebody. And then another person, you don't like them. And so you don't treat them well, but the person you got this affinity for, you treat very, very well. So you're repeating a same behavior that you may have done in another life. You have no idea what happened here. And it's so funny because the little girl, you know, Kalia, everybody knows Kalia, said to me yesterday, Auntie, I don't understand why this boy is so afraid of me. He walked up to me and he said, I'm afraid of you. I don't like you. I'm afraid of you. And he runs from her. She said, it bothers me. Why is he doing that? And you know, the spirits told me not to tell her too much at this age. So I told her, just say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I say, every time you see him, every time you think of him, you do that and you watch, it's going to change. That's all I can tell her. I cannot tell her that y'all had a past life and you did him something. You did something to him and he's feeling it. Because those emotions don't go away. Yep. Those vibrations don't go away. You cannot erase them. And so, and you have to work through it. So he's back, you know. So I can't wait for this to happen. But anyway.
Keep us posted.
Okay, yeah, I will. But anyway, I just said all that to say, you know, we think that only in present time, and that is where a lot of mistakes are made.
Yep.
Everything just happened right now. But yet, on TV, we see that there's spirits, you know, they show ghost hunting, and even in our own lives, we've had intuition about who's getting ready to call or such and such is going to happen. We all have these feelings and emotions, you know, we all have this mediumship that we're not educated of, you know, about. And so that's what I like about Spiritism. It will help you work through this. And then a lot of answers and a lot of mysteries will be resolved. And it's so amazing. Anyway, I'm rambling.
That's true, Gina. That's true. And I think that exactly, I mean, this is the point. We must reflect on what is the role that we are allowing God to play on our life and what is the role that we are playing on our life. Because knowing that God will not do the things for us, but will give us the means for us to achieve, I mean, what are we doing with that, right? Like,
look at the planet. You know, the planet says this is human global warming, but most people say global warming, like we're not responsible for what has happened. It's because of what we have done, our free will.
Exactly.
How long are you going to have that dog?
He's afraid. He needed my lap. Sorry.
How long you gonna have him, Kiki?
For 1 week and a half more.
Oh, wow. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yep.
so, we make our own choices,
Yep.
and then there's some things we don't have a choice with, but we don't know that until we do our work, our homework,
Exactly.
to find out. But we are responsible for our choices. It's like eating.
Yeah.
You put it
We
in.
co-create with God, right? We are co-creators with God.
True enough. But we still are responsible. He's not going to allow angels or your guardians to interfere with what you chose to do.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Thank you,
anybody
sister.
else?
Thank you for these invaluable contributions. Any more questions or comments about God, creation, importance on our life? All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We continue next week. So for now, I just would like to do a closing prayer. Gina, would you like to do the closing prayer, sister?
Sure, no worries. Let us close our eyes. And if you haven't said hello to God today, say hello, Father. Hello, Heavenly Father. I love you so much. And I thank you for allowing me to be here in this moment with my brothers and sisters. And I ask, dear Father, to bless my mind to understand, and bless all of my brothers and sisters' minds and hearts to understand what your laws are, what your rules are. And may we, dear Father, go to study when we rest tonight. May we have permission to study, to go and learn more about who you are and why we are, and what we chose to do here. In your name, Father, we ask for your blessing, your guidance, and your love. So be it.
So be it, and so it is. Thank you, dear sister. Thank you, everyone. May you all have a blessed night, and see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey,
Bye.
Sonia, you okay over there?